so you take it in trade.
Oh,
Everybody's motorcycles. So, okay. So he says, yeah, okay, I'll take it. He takes the motorcycle.
probably don't
He
need.
fixed it. It's not running.
Okay, I'll just do it without the mic, you can hear me. All right,
Then it was worth
we're ready to get started, but before we do, I want to first of all thank the reunion committee, and I know I may miss some names, but I want to mention them anyway. We had Larry and Edith Bullock, we had Ken Clapp, Dave Eastburn was on it, Bob Turbofill had other responsibilities, so he couldn't get here to this event. George Dunlop, Pat Graham, Linda Fairbanks Atkins, she was also on it. She would be here, but she was in an accident, and her ankle was broken. Now she said it was just a slight bump. I'm like, I don't think you break a bone with a slight bump. So keep her in your prayers, obviously, because I think she's going to be having surgery at some point here. Tom Salvador, you were on it, right?
Bill.
Bill, not Tom.
I'm lucky to
Bill.
be here, let alone being on any committees.
Did I leave anybody else off? I think those were the ones.
Coleman Emerson,
Coleman was
the
too.
best committee member.
Yes. Coleman was on it too.
They told me, but they put my name down. Just the worst ever.
All right, listen, while the program's going, if you haven't filled these out, okay, this little card thing, please do that, because George and I'll read them, share some things, and then I'm sure there may be some time for other sharings as well. Well, I'm supposed to start with what Catawba means to me, but George and I spoke, because he's going to be sharing some things too, and I thought, what if Catawba wasn't in my life? And I have to give you a little background information. Grew up on a farm, 3 brothers, none of them finished high school, so I was the first one to finish high school. None of them obviously went to college, so I would be the first. But you have to understand, my parents would have been just as happy had I worked at a manufacturing plant like Firestone, Dana, up north. But I had a pastor who said, Ron, I think you should look into this college in North Carolina, because I was going to a UCC church. And he said, Catawba, but he said there's also Elon. So I never went to Elon to visit, just here. But my parents, we didn't have money either. They couldn't send me to college. They didn't have the funds. So as a junior, growing up on a farm, I raised stock bulls. They were Holsteins. All right, the Amish people, they don't believe in artificial insemination, obviously, okay? So I would take these bulls, and I raised 3 my junior year, and sold them in Ephrata at a sale there. And then my senior year, I raised 2 more. So I had 5 stock bulls, had enough money to come for the first year of college.
Wow.
And so that's the background knowledge. Okay, I want background information to me. And everybody here has some background stories for sure. But anyway, and here I am in Pennsylvania, and now traveling, and when we drove here, I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing's like 11 hours, because you didn't have 70-mile-an-hour speed limits. And my parents, they would not go over it like I do sometimes. So it's like, okay, so it took that long, but I thought and so the pastor kept saying, well, I think you should really go to college. Okay, I think that's a good thing. All right, my parents, no encouragement, so I did. All right, now, 3 influencers in my life here at Catawba, and one of them's here, all right, and the other one is Rudy Chatlis. Now, he would have been here, but something came up in his family or with his situation, and so he was unable to come here to this event. So here I am, a northerner, and I'm coming south. And we did learn about the Civil War, all right, so we got some information. Then I get this guy with a long drawl kind of thing, and he says, y'all, y'all. All right? But Rudy's okay, because he was Maryland.
Mason Dixon was.
I understood it. I understood. But anyway, what I did is, I was fortunate because I was homesick, being that far, hadn't been away from home and all that stuff. And but Ken and Rudy were there. And I don't know, I mean, obviously, the other gentlemen here are of the highest esteem and all of that. But Ken and Rudy, you know, they had a really good work ethic. They were had integrity that was beyond questionable, for sure. They were encouragers as well. And there were 3 of us in the indestructible Salisbury Roland. All right, so we were there. And yeah, Section E we were in. But I have to say, they were the first influencers. And I can remember sitting with, you know, and Earl Ruth, I think it was. Earl Ruth. He gets up and he says, look to your left, look to your right. They probably won't be here at the end. And I'm like, I'm looking around, I'm saying, wait a minute, nobody's going to be here then. Everybody's gone, right? And I can remember Earl Ruth holding up a shoe. You remember when the what was it, a cherry bomb or something was put in a shoe? And he was ticked. He was really angry. But anyway, so they were there. We went to these, you know, different situations together. So I have to say, I thank them. And the other influencer, a second one, is Martha West. I'll tell you, I was a teacher and a principal. You know, it was like 32 and a half years, my involvement in education. She was the one. She was the one that in class, she saw something in me that I didn't see. Just like the pastor, they saw something that maybe I could become a leader. I didn't see that. In high school, I did nothing. I went to class, I may have participated in events, but I didn't do anything. It was Martha West who helped me to really become the teacher that I became, because I never lost sight of the importance of you're not teaching material, you're teaching children. And so, and she always said, there were 3 things, Ron, remember. Be flexible, be flexible, be flexible. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. And boy, I've used that with students that I've had at Eastern University. The third one, and this is one you may not even think of, and that's you. And I say you as a class, because when I tell the story of myself, and I say, where could I have gone to a college that was small enough to this country bumpkin kid, who is a farmer's kid, could come, no leadership responsibility at all, and come to a college. And I was involved in the Student Christian Association. I don't even know if that exists here anymore, but the students there thought I could even be involved in leadership there. And then Kappa Kappa, which was an education group, they saw it, and they elected me to be a leadership. But this is the capstone. You, as a class, saw that leadership in me. And it might not have been maybe the other person I was running against. You didn't think, I'll take this guy. But no, I have to thank you as a class, and you probably didn't realize the impact that you had. But you know, as we get older, obviously, and when you reflect on things, you realize, wait a minute, you are where you are because of people. This guy and Rudy here at Catawba, and then Martha West and other professors too, but Martha is the one that, she is like, and we had a chance to visit like about 4 or 5 years ago, I guess we were here, and I had the chance to talk to Martha, and we were able to tell her what she meant to us, which was, and she's no longer here because she had passed away. But I wanted you to know that you, as I reflected on it, I thought, there's no way. And so I became a teacher and a principal of a school of 720 children, talked in front of 1,000 parents sometimes that would come to different events. And I could never have done it So what you see is partly
Hmm.
here. Okay. All right, George.
Well, thank you, Ron, for sharing those things. And, you know, to pick up on the theme that Ron had spoken about, as we were visiting, I said, well, I would like to challenge all of us in this class to think on this theme of what if. What if, as Ron had said, I had never crossed paths with Catawba College? Think about, as I draw a few threads from the fabric of my what ifs, about what you might think about what your life might have been differently. Well, first of all, my first what if is I wouldn't have come to college at all. You see, when I was a little boy, I was born and raised in Salisbury. My father had a small business here. And my mother died when I was 8 years old. And so my father, for whatever reasons, decided to move back up to Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania, where his parents had lived. And so we were, my brother and I, Tom, who was in the class of 71, and parenthetically, my father, who was the Catawba Class of 1939, we went to live in an orphanage, a home for partial orphans in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And this was not a high school, it was a trade school. And so my education as a high school student was as a machine shop, a machinist, making things out of metal. And this school had an arrangement, or a company called Carpenter Technology in Reading, Pennsylvania, had an arrangement with this orphanage in which I lived, that anybody that graduated from the machine shop course was guaranteed a job to work at Carpenter Technology at then, this was 1964, the princely sum of $25 an hour. That'd be like $75 an hour now. And so, you know, we worked very hard to be able to get our machinist certificate. And so, actually, in the first few months of my senior year, my father spoke to me and he said, now listen, it's time for you to be thinking about where you're going to go to college. And I said, well, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to go to work at Carpenter Technology for $25 an hour. I'm going to be a blue collar worker. This is what my life is. That's what I've been training for. And he said, well, you have to go to college. There's no question about it. And I said, well, the problem is that this is a school that offers a certificate for having attended. I won't have a high school diploma. You can't go to college without a high school diploma. I haven't taken any of these tests or anything else you have to take. I'm not qualified to go to college. He said, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, having lived in Salisbury, and my mother had attended Central High School in Charlotte, North Carolina with Earl Ruth, and in the 1930s. And so my dad, knowing the Ruths and everything because he lived here, he calls Earl on the phone. He says, Earl, I got these two boys and they're going to be graduating, but they're not going to have a high school diploma. What am I going to do? They got to go to college. He said, send them on down, really. And so, you know, the first example of a Catawba person who gave forward, as we were talking a little bit later, maybe at some risk. He could have maybe been criticized for enrolling somebody that didn't have an SAT test or didn't even have a high school diploma. So I came down here, and if I had not run into this person, Earl Ruth, if he hadn't extended out as a Catawba person, then, you know, I probably would have been a blue-collar worker, happy as a clam in Reading, Pennsylvania. The second thing that impacted my life completely, by, of course, having a college education qualifies you for all kinds of careers that you could go instead of being a blue-collar worker, as honorable as that would have been, was the fact that one of our classmates, Jimmy Lee Graham, see, I was in the class of 1968, actually, and I'll tell a bit about that in a minute, why I ended up in the class of 70. But in 1964, after I was here a little bit, we used to go down to Black Welder's Barbecue. It's now Hedrick's Barbecue. And I don't know if you remember or not, but they were, in North Carolina, you could drink beer at 18. And so, you know, we would sometimes come back with maybe a little bit, one too many beers under our belt. And one night I came back in that condition, and so Jimmy Lee Graham took me aside. We lived in Hedrick Hall at the time. It was a dormitory then. And he took me up on the steps in the back way, and he said, listen, you've got to get your life straightened out. You can't continue with this. And he gave me the 4 spiritual laws. And, you know, I had always thought I was a Christian, but, you know, that night I became converted to having Christ in my life, Christ living in me on the steps of Hendrick Hall through the good offices of another Catawba person. And of course, that totally changed my life. My wife would have never taken any interest in any unchristian person, so the fact that I'm married, you know, all that flowed out of that. And then the other thing that was really a very life-impacting thing for me is that as a youth, a young kid, I was very interested in all aspects of politics and everything. And this was at the very beginning of the Vietnam War. And there, as we heard some earlier people say, there was divisions about whether we should be fighting in Vietnam or not. Well, I was on the side of the group that thought that, well, we should vigorously pursue the war, victory in Vietnam, let's defeat these communists, you know, let's give them the cold steel, boys. And I would take that position. And you know, we used to come down, maybe you remember, between classes or after classes were over for the morning, we'd go down into the student union, get our mail, have a cup of coffee or whatever it was, and engage in discussions and debates and things like that. Since the Vietnam issue was top on everybody's mind, I don't remember the name of this person, but you know, when you're a college, I guess I was a sophomore then, you know, you're kind of a lower classman, you know, maybe the seniors and juniors would deign to maybe look at you, maybe, but you know, they wouldn't certainly talk to you. I mean, you know, who is this guy, you know? And so, but there was this one really strikingly beautiful young lady who all of the boys, you know, just would look up to. Gosh, she's so beautiful, she's so smart, she's so intelligent, she's just so super. And so I would engage in discussions with her, you know, and all my friends would stand back and say, wow, she's talking to him. Wow, what's he got? And so one time she said to me, she said, well, the problem with you, George Dunlop, is that you're a hypocrite. Well, that struck me to my soul. I mean, you know, she said, you talk the talk, but you don't walk the walk. And of course, as a new Christian, you know, I'd heard a lot from the pulpit about, you know, you better walk the walk if you're going to talk the talk. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, here you are. What are you, 19 years old? You're here in this comfortable environment. Look at you drinking a cup of coffee. And you're here advocating for people to go out and fight in the jungles of Vietnam. Why aren't you there with them? They're boys your age out there in the grime of the jungle and everything else. If you had any integrity at all, you'd go out there and be with them, and you wouldn't be sitting here drinking coffee in the student union. And I thought, wow. I mean, what could I say? And so I went back and I slept over that overnight. And the next morning I went down and enlisted in the Marine Corps. And so I served then, well, on active duty 2 years in the Marine Corps. And that's why, a total of 12 years later, because I stayed in the active reserves for the rest of the time. But I came back to Catawba after my 2-year stint in the Marine Corps, and that's why I'm in the class of 1970 instead of the class of 1968, because that young lady, you know, really made a point to me that if you're going to talk the talk, whatever it is, you better be prepared to walk the walk. Now that was a life lesson for me that I have carried out in everything that I've ever done and tried to accomplish in every profession I've undertaken. But the other thing is if there was anything that would kind of define me as a person, it's the fact that, you know, they say once a Marine, always a Marine. And I am still very enthusiastic about the Marine Corps. I've had to stay active in all the Marine Corps League and all the other things. So being a Marine has been an integral part of my life. And if that young woman had not had the, I guess you would say courage, or what would you say it, the moxie, to say to some kid, you know, are you going to talk the talk or are you going to walk the walk? And so maybe there's other people like that you met in your pathway to Catawba, or why you were in Catawba, that might have had some similar impacts on that. And I could name many, many other people, but you know, when you start naming people, well then, you know, you're leaving out people. But I do remember, of course, Dr. C. Greg Singer. I was a history major, and Dr. Singer had through his good offices, had arranged for me to be accepted to a graduate school at Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. So I went and got a graduate degree there to become a college professor. But I ended up working in a career in politics, and so to bring all the thing to full circle is that Earl Ruth, you know, who was quite a character. Did you all have traffic with Dr. Ruth? I mean, you know, he was a gruff, yeah, what a great guy. And of course, he had been a friend of our family. But when I came back out of the Marine Corps, he decided that year to run for Congress. And so I worked in his campaign that summer as a, you know, campaign operative, doing different things that you do to win elections. And he won that election. And in fact, I think Earl served 3 terms in the House of Representatives. He was a very distinguished congressman and just a great fellow. But working with in that campaign gave me credentials, you see. I had actually had experience that then, without going into other details of my career, I got involved in politics. And if I had not worked for Earl Ruth in that campaign, well, I wouldn't have been credentialed to work in the other campaigns for which I worked for Senator Jesse Helms and Ronald Reagan and all the rest. So all of these things that impacted my life and defined my life really were a result because Catawba people and Catawba circumstances invested in me. Now, can you think of ways that other people that you met during your time here or since in Catawba that have impacted your life? I'd like you to dwell on that, think about, and maybe thank the Lord about it. Because as we were talking about at our table, you know, it's often been said there's no such thing as a coincidence. It's only God acting anonymously. Well, did God use Earl Ruth, that gruff old Presbyterian guy, you know, who was gruff and everything? Did he use him to bring me to Catawba? Did he inspire that young lady to, you know, knock me back on my heels? Did he inspire Jimmy Lee Graham to lead me to the Lord through reading of the Scripture? I mean, we have to think that the way in which the Lord impacts our lives. And I think that he's used this institution of Catawba College to further his interest in that regard. So.
Okay, and now Edith, I think you have some
Okay.
things to share.
I sure will. Let's see. Okay. Usually I talk pretty loudly. And, I have to warn you though, I retired in 2020 after teaching for 46 years, and I am used to talking in 50-minute time slots. So, or on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I talk for an hour and 15-minute time slot. So you can be like a student and let me know when time's up. The first thing they've asked me to do though is to recognize special guests. Carl Hales was here earlier and went to join the class of 71. I have to tell you, they beat us to the punch on the faculty. So Carl is over there. Pat Rice, as I think most of you knew her then, and is Pat Rice Whitley. Pat, I believe, was going to join them as well. Andy Vance, I don't know if any of you took French or business law. Well, I don't think. Andy was teaching French, I think, when we were here, and then he went to law school. The college supported him to do that, and then he came back, still taught French, but then also taught business law as well. Andy and his wife were not able to come out for homecoming. Al Carter, I talked to his wife Marcia about 2 nights ago, and she said they would not try to come, but to tell everyone hello, and that Al still had very fond memories of being at Catawba, and I told him that we had very fond memories of Al being here as well. Bethany Senate, who I don't know that Bethany came our last year, and so I don't know that many of you might have had Bethany. She was an English professor. She's doing quite well, and again, the class of 71 got her. Ken Sale, who was my mentor in the sociology department. My husband saw Ken recently. He's doing well. Ken is in his 90s now. And so Ken wasn't able to come out for this event, but again, he has fond memories, and I certainly have fond memories of Ken. I think those are all the living faculty members I'm aware of. Ken, clap, can you? Is that pretty much? That's pretty much covers it. So there may have, I mean, certainly there may have been some who were here. I told Carl, I said, one of my big regrets is I did not have you for speech, because some guy named Barry was here and I had speech with him. And Carl said, oh yeah, that's when I had gone off to finish my doctorate. And I can't even.
Catherine might be the other one.
Well, Hoyt, yeah, but they had brought, Carl said this man Barry they had brought in for a year. So
No, Hoyt's still living.
oh, Hoyt, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Hoyt,
Yeah.
yes, Hoyt is still living. I am so sorry, because he too, when I came back to teach here, was so gracious. And Minnie, of course, his wife Minnie was the nurse that many students remember. So yes, Hoyt, and Hoyt's daughter Renee still teaches music here at Catawba. So yes, not to forget Hoyt. Okay, and I think later, Ken, you'll be talking about some, there'll be a memoriam for the ones who have passed away. The other thing I was asked to do was to talk about Catawba in the past, and according to the program, I have 5 minutes to do that. Is that correct? So 50 years in 5 minutes.
You have 10 minutes.
10. Oh, okay. Oh, good. Okay.
Keep on.
When we graduated, and I transferred to Catawba, and I won't tell you from whence I came, but I graduated, I transferred in 68 and then graduated in 70. I went to Chapel Hill 4 years to get my doctorate. Then I came back to teach part-time for 3 years. I went to Livingstone with Sterling Whitener for 8 years. And then I came back to Catawba in 85 and stayed. I retired in May of 2020. So 46 years of teaching, and 38 of those years were here at Catawba. And I always tell people I had the dream job, because my mother used to say she sent me to Catawba when I was 19 and I never finished. I finished officially in 2020, but I live across the street from the gym, and I still feel, I used to tell students, I walk across campus and I think I'm 20 something, and then I see Ken clap and I think, ooh, what happened? I'm sorry, Ken, but I tell that all the time. And then I see my reflection in one of the windows, and I think, ooh, it happened to me too. But nonetheless, okay. A little bit though, the last few years that I taught full-time instead of doing administrative duties, I got to teach a class, or I chose to teach a class, one of the freshman seminars on the 1960s. And it was like reliving the 60s. And I always would tell students, I hate you missed it, because it was, honestly, after spending all these decades on campus, it was truly one of the most exciting decades to be on a college campus. And the first day of class, I give them the final exam, and the exam question is a prompt I stole from Charles Dickens. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And at the end of the semester, they would each do a presentation on that theme. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And then they would say, gosh, we're sorry we missed it too. But anyhow, I don't have to tell you much about the 60s. I'll just go decade by decade. The 70s, when we left, things fell apart. The 70s were challenging times for the college. Financially, student life was changing. That was the decade. And I came back to teach during that time. And things were just sort of wide open. That was when they were lifting all the visitation things. They were starting to allow alcohol on campus. Just a lot of things changed. It was a challenging time, but one of the highlights of the 1970s was in athletics, Title IX. Well, it was the college as a whole, and I won't do it now, but I think, the yearbook, Ken, that's in front of you, what year is that?
68.
Okay, when I taught my class on the 60s, I would take that yearbook to class, and there are probably 8 to 10 pages in that yearbook on football. There are 6 pages on basketball. There are 3 to 4 pages on baseball, golf, tennis, wrestling. There are 2 pages on women's sports, and Pat Whitley coaches all of them. So, and the students were like, what? And I said, that was before Title IX. So one of the things I think started to really, and Jill, you were an athlete, right? So, and I know some of the others of you were too. One of the things that the 70s on the plus side saw was the inclusion of women in athletics. And I checked the website. There are now 10 men's sports at Catawba. And actually the website lists 11 because they put beach volleyball as separate from volleyball. So, but that's been really neat for me over the years to see women's full, as women choose to, certainly, but the involvement of women and the support for women in athletics. The 1980s, I often think of as the Renaissance period for Catawba, and a lot of that centers around Steve Wooster, who came to Catawba as president during that time. Steve brought a whole new energy and excitement to campus, and in light of the recent gift Catawba received of $200 million, Steve, to me, was the president who really set in motion the Catawba-Salisbury community connection. Steve nurtured that connection with the Salisbury community. He started the First Family Scholars Program and got people in Salisbury who had no connection with Catawba other than Catawba being here. They had gone to other schools, their families, none of them had come to Catawba. And Steve was able to pull these people to campus. And I actually spoke with Steve's wife today, Steve's widow, Jean, and she said, we were talking about how exciting the gift is. And Jean said, I only wish Steve would have lived to see this because he so much wanted this college to prosper. So again, you can tell I'm a Steve Wooster fan, but the 80s to me were magic. That's when we started a freshman program that Bruce Griffith, that many of you may remember, launched. And to this day, Catawba has a program that all freshmen come and they're in a group of about 15, and they're in a seminar with a faculty member. And that whole first semester, that faculty member is your advisor, and that group becomes a real peer group. I'm looking over there, called Savannah, would have been in our freshman program at some point. So that was launched while Steve was here. So the 80s were, again, to me, a very golden time. The 90s were good, but it was obvious things were changing, both in the country and certainly at the college. Fred Collier becomes president. Enrollment challenges continue. I used to tell students in my classes, if you don't know the answer, write down baby boom, because it's probably right. Because another class I taught, the first day I gave the final exam, which it was my population dynamics class, and the final exam was population is destiny. And one of the challenges, especially for small private schools like us, has been the changing population of the country, the aging of the baby boomers, and then the shrinking size of college populations. So the 90s were challenging. That was a point in time, though, when we tried some real innovations. We started the evening program to address this backlog of students who had not been able to go to college. At one point, we reached 500 enrollment in the evening. That has gone down considerably, but part of that is because that market that had been accumulating for decades of people who couldn't go to college, we served them. And so the evening program here is no longer that large, but at the same time, it was very much a part of the 90s. The 90s, academically, we had a good bit of expansion, especially in our environmental science programs. And of course, that has continued to grow and has encouraged a major donor who, again, has been highly supportive of the college. And we are known not only nationally now, but internationally for our environment and sustainability programs. So, again, that was one of the big initiatives of the 1990s. And then we roll on into the 2000s, and once again, lots of challenges in higher education. We went through a series of presidents and provosts. I did 2 tours of duty, not as a Marine, but I felt like I did 2 tours of duty as the academic dean, 1 year only. But there were some challenging times. We had some turnover in terms of both the president's office and the academic dean / provost office. But once again, things, we continue to move along, and we've had some exciting new programs. We've had graduate programs develop in business and in sports management, and I'd have to either look at my notes or think of the others.
Health sciences.
Health sciences. Thank you, Savannah. You should know this.
You got it.
Okay, is that covering it pretty much? Oh, mental health counseling.
Yes.
That has been very successful. I think about 2 years ago, we were working on it about the time I retired, and it has launched, and it has been very successful. So we are doing some graduate programming now that is very exciting in terms of things going on campus. There's a great deal of excitement, of course, with a new president and now the big gift. And so, I look back over these decades, and yes, there have been ups and downs, but I think we all feel really good about where we are now and what's ahead. The one thing I would say through all of these decades, because I've been here for every one of them, the constant has been the connection between faculty, staff, administrators, and students. And I can tell you in all honesty, faculty, staff today are much like the ones we remember from our time here. They are still so invested in these students and in this place. And that's why I always said it was the dream job. Savannah's just starting. I had Savannah in class, so she's used to me talking on and on. But, whether you're a new faculty or staff member or one of the old timers, it's that spirit of Catawba is still very much here. And so, I finished teaching, but I sure haven't finished with Catawba. So we're just glad you're all back.
Good to be here.
Oh, okay.
Does anybody have any of these? Because we're gonna read these now, okay?
Oh, you didn't know they were going to
Just at the bottom so that they fall asleep.
Yeah, and by the way, Bill, you may call me George or Sam or anything.
No problem. No problem.
All right, George, how about we do this? Do you wanna?
Well, Ron and I are going to share reading these things. We were talking earlier. We said that we need to have people write these things down on a piece of paper, because if we had each of you all stand up, we wouldn't get out of here till 2 or 3 in the morning. So, but at any rate, this is kind of a synopsis of some of the things that each of you all have shared with the rest of us about what Catawba has meant to me. So here's the first one here. Go ahead, Ron.
Okay, this one says, what has it meant to me? I love my time at Catawba and consider it my alma mater, even though I only spent 2 years here. All right, who influenced me the most? I arrived at Catawba in the spring, prior to my first year. We pulled into a parking spot and I was greeted by a hey from a most attractive co-ed. I said to my dad, where do I sign? Oh, I have no idea who that is. Yes. Okay, why? I realized that most people in the South were quite friendly, and this was where I wanted to start my education. And you know, that is true. In the South, greeted you very politely and positively, too. Okay, here's another one. You want to read that one, George?
Here's another. 50 plus years ago, with the love of my life, a good friend, and good times. That's what Catawba has meant to me. And then who influenced me the most? Dr. Kilgore and Dr. Mr.
Antonicus.
And Pastor Sywell.
Oh yeah, Pastor Sywell, I remember.
And why did these people influence me the most? Discipline and problem solving for life, and faith and action came from Pastor Sywell.
Yeah. Okay, another one. What Catawba has meant, all right, the blessings of life, long friendships, and a very special husband. Ooh, okay. Miss Epperson. Yeah, Mrs. Epperson, that's it. Who taught me piano and life skills. And I became a teacher through this experience. Okay, all right.
And what Catawba has meant to me, this person says, a place of higher learning, a refuge, an oasis of knowledge and understanding. And who influenced me the most? Hoyt McCatherine and Carl Hales. They were both in the, Carl Hales was speech and McCatherine was the drama. Is that right?
Yeah.
And why? Because of their steady, calm, affirming personality and the fact that they were true gentlemen.
Yeah. This one, Catawba meant to this person good education, good foundation for the future. Who influenced them the most, or this person the most? Through years, all the professors helped to mold me into the independent person I am. We could use more of that today. It seems on college campuses, there's hardly any discussion. Nobody wants to discuss. All right.
All right, well, here's what Catawba has meant to me. A home. I met my spouse, found my passion for sociology, and spent 38 years of my 46 years teaching here. Those who influenced me the most.
Wonder who that is.
Dr. Whitener, Dr. Sell, and Dr. West. And why did they influence me the most? Because of their encouragement and academic excellence.
Okay, this one says, it was a place of a spiritual home where I answered my calling into ministry. I met my wife of 50 years and met lifelong friends. Who influenced me? It was Dr. Rich, the professor of psychology. And why? Because Dr. Rich helped me discover who I am and who I hope to be.
Wow, and here's another one. What Catawba's meant to me. Lasting friendships, excellent education, helpful professors, weekly chapel services, and beautiful magnolias and gardenias throughout the campus. And who influenced me the most? Dr. Richard, I didn't know this person, Schleichenberger, something like that, Schleichenbach.
Sheenbach.
Sheenbach, okay. All right.
Oh, Sheeman.
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 Sheeman, there it is,
Dr.
Sheeman.
Yeah.
All right.
He was a rabbi.
He was a rabbi. Great.
He was an ordained rabbi,
Alright.
or whatever, however they.
And Dr. Lawrence Bond and Mr. Gilbert Piravano.
Piravano.
Yeah. And why? Because of their intelligence, their kindness, and caring about students, and that they were tremendous humanists.
Their humanity, yeah. Okay, this one says, a great friendship of special people, and the person influencing them the most was Dr. Bond. He made me stretch my love of choral music and was a great mentor in life skills.
All right, and what Catawba has meant to me, it says here, Catawba prepared me to be the best teacher I could be. It helps me prepare others for the future. Also, best of times, met my husband and many other friends for life. And who influenced me the most? All of my professors. Why? Because they helped me become me.
Okay. Is there anyone else? Anyone else who had one that we missed? Okay, very good. It kind of goes back to what Edith was saying. I mean, it came up, professors, people, it still is that connection, and it is today, for sure. All right, we are now at the point where I think Larry is going to lead us in the Alma Mater. All right, now, I am counting on those okay, I'm counting on those of you with the choral gift, because God gave me a thimbleful. Fortunately, I have 3 granddaughters, and He gave them a lot.
Okay, Savannah joined us, and any of those who sang with the choirs, except for Dr. Clapp, will you please, I'm sorry, Dr. Clapp, were you getting up to sing with us?
I was just gonna sing the Alma Mater.
Oh, okay, all right.
He's
I'd like,
to sing it.
those who are singing, if you'll put your mask on during, we spray too much. But those who were in choir or music and want to sing, stand back from the rest of them, and let's sing Down in the Virgin.
Are we gonna stand up and sing it?
Okay, if you notice the 10th song, it is Alma Mater, but and we used to sing it so slowly, but it's going to be a little peppier. Okay, Savannah? Down in the verdant southland, high on the Piedmont plains, there's a tower that's piercing the heavens, and a campus upon memory lanes. Higher than the walls of my making are the thoughts of my sojourn there. Brighter than the sun upon waking are the friendships I cannot aware. Fair Catawba, my Catawba, symbol of life and right, with thy sons and daughters hailing, Queen of light. Rich and glorious be thy future, world of influence wide, and with us who bear thy culture, may thy precepts and spirits abide. Thank you so much. Dr. Clapp, I apologize. I know that you're a reverent man, and you were standing because we were singing it. Yes, I apologize.
That's all right. You also know that if I was singing it, it would mess it up for everyone else.
Hey,
Excuse me, Larry. Larry
John.
Bullock. May I take the microphone? Sure. I'm John Rapp, class of 76, and I brought a mementos. No, Larry, come back here. Come back here.
Oh.
Since we're reminiscing, I had the pleasure to do the yard for Mary Dearborn and Francis Omway for 3 years. I walked over there, and let me tell you, it's a shame the way the rose gardens, they're no more. Ms. Omway had me out there 92 with her cane, telling me where to cut it. I was pleased and honored, as this man was, to be one of the 6 pallbearers for Francis Alma's funeral. Here's the service.
Are you gonna give this to us?
No, this is mine. I'm treasuring, but Howard Alma, Mary Dearborn. I was a part of the Dearborn family. You know, those of you that know Mary, she was the first lady of Catawba.
Yes.
She just, you know, the chiefs and everything. And Ms. Almwake was such a dear soul. I used to drive them down to First UC. Take this thing off.
Okay.
Take them down to First UCC on Sundays. Easter Sunday, Ms. Almwake's backyard, the roses, white and red roses for those living and those passed on, came for First UCC, came from that garden. And I found this not too long ago.
That's wonderful.
And so the pallbearers were Marion M. Richards, Marvin Wigington, Harold Eisenberg, he was superintendent of Rowan County Schools, Porter Sywell, Larry Bullock, and I was the student representative for Francis Alma.
I lived with Mrs. Onwake for almost a year before I lived with Edith. So, I was living there when I got married to Edith. The story I want to tell about her, she called me and said, I'd already had an apartment. She said, it's not the apartment you need to be living in. You need to come and live with me. She had lost her license. She could not drive. I was responsible for the yard as well as
Really, you did it too?
I did it too.
So Hamp Shuford followed you, and then I got the job.
Okay.
Hamp
Shuford
wow.
did. I did the yard. I took her around town. I took her on trips out of town. And but when I went to visit on that Saturday, she said, you can use this shelf on my pantry. She had cleaned it off. And I looked down, and there were wine bottles and sherry bottles on the bottom of the pantry. When I came back Monday to move in, those wine bottles, sherry bottles, had been moved. I was told by her daughter, not Mrs. Dearborn.
Elizabeth or Betsy or Betsy or what was the other one?
Mary, the daughter.
Yeah, the older one.
Well, she said, Mrs. Onwake did not want to tempt me, so she took all her liquor out of the pantry and put it in her bedroom closet.
I remember seeing liquor when I was there.
Right. Well, she left
But
it
there
in
was
there.
always beer in the fridge in the garage
Right,
for me
right.
after I mowed the yard.
And John, I'll have to say, John Rapp's dad, I knew him personally.
Right.
And we were in the Historical Society of the ENR Historical Society. And it's good to see you, John.
Yeah,
I wasn't
good to be here
expecting,
again.
I thought you were coming to see my wife, not me.
Well, I had youth. I was a sociology major, and Dr. Ken Sell was one of my father's classmates at Lancaster Theological Seminary, and Mary Dearborn was Dad's pinochle and bridge partner at UCC Board for World Ministries meeting.
Right.
That's how this Catawba family keeps going. So.
Thank you.
But I wanted to come and find you this weekend because I found this.
Wow. It was an honor to be.
It was an honor to be part of that family.
I was there when she turned 90, and that was a celebration.
So anyway, I hate to interrupt the 50th, but I'll be there soon. So.
That's 5 years.
Not willing.
Okay, the next part of what we're going to do is you're going to see pictures of some of the students who are no longer with us. And there's probably over 40. There's at least 40, maybe 41. I know. I was shocked because I had lost touch with, I don't know if you remember Cliff Pope. Yeah, I had lost touch with him. We were roommates, that kind of thing, and Abernathy, and so it's my fault too. You know how time goes, and just lost total touch. So then when this was being pulled together, I emailed Savannah, and I said, Savannah, could you give me the information about Cliff? And it took a little bit, but then she got back to me, and I was shocked because Cliff is one of those. And I thought, so you may see some here that you say, oh my gosh, so kind of forewarning you for that. Okay, let's go through and, okay, Clark, I think he really went by Ron, but Ron Adams, Clark Ronald Adams. Linda Rowe, and then she married I remember her, and Ahmed, I think is the last name. Robert Arthur.
He went by David.
David, okay. Randy Barnes. Yep, Randy Barnes. Lucille Beck. Jared Beck.
She was older than we. She came back and.
Did she? Okay.
Yeah, she was about 50 years older than we.
Oh, wow, okay. Elaine Long Berry. Adrian Blackman.
Okay, in passing, just because one of my jobs is to keep people happy. I work on Lake Norman, and I tell jokes. So I'll tell you my mono-purpose joke. Joke for any occasion. You can tell it the person at the checkout counter at Harris Teeter that's just waiting for 10 minutes because they're all bummed out because they're shifted, and you don't at the top in the corner. But in this case, how do you keep a Catawba alumni in suspense for 24 hours?
Don't have any idea.
I'll tell you tomorrow. I'll be singing at the church chapel. I'll wait there one time. I'll be singing there. I'll tell you tomorrow. So there. All right.
All right, now let me draw you back here, okay? Okay, Ridgeway, and this I think is Boileau, or Boileau. Yeah, Mike Corbett. Yeah, remember him.
Kicked football too, didn't he?
Yeah. Okay, John Donati. Catherine Enos. In fact, she's in a picture with me. Bill Yates or Will Estes. Heartland Helmick. Paige Henry.
He was a suite mate of ours, and he transferred to, I think, the University of Delaware.
Okay. Okay, Betty Ann Holcomb. Dennis Holland. Nancy Hudson. Catherine Hudson. Henry Hunter. Yeah, Henry Hunter. Michael Hutchins. Yeah, remember. Carla Marshall and Clump. Mary Ann Langingham. Charles, I think it was Dean, he went by, yeah, Louder. David Morgan. Daniel Owen. James Paget. Amy Collins, Palmore. Stuart Parks. Cliff Pope. James Price. Goral Proctor. Susan Souderman Sandrock. Bill Schultz. James Michael Sickett. Jeffrey Massey Sparks. Mary Schuler Stroud. Barry Thornburg. Wanda Lemon Vance. Charles Vierick. Mary Walls Vinson. Carol Weant. Bill Wheeler.
And that concludes.
And I think that may be it. So you can see how I could hear from some of you, say, oh, wow, didn't realize it. And, of course, sometimes I forget, I'm going on 73, all right? but we have no idea, for a number of them, how they passed away. But anyway, Ken's going to share some things now about some of the faculty and then who are no longer with us as well. And then he'll offer a prayer up too. All right, Ken?
We do not have pictures of faculty. We do have pictures. Okay. We do not have pictures of faculty. When we started looking at this, we realized that there were so many at this point. Some of those were persons that were adjuncts and only slightly involved perhaps in our lives because they maybe taught one course. Others were people that had left Catawba long before their deaths, and we had no way of following up and knowing anything really about them other than, and in some cases we could not establish whether they are still living or not. So Ron has mentioned the passing of Martha Kirkland West, and there have been others that were very much involved during the time that we were at Catawba. And I do not have that list either, but I'm just going to offer a prayer on behalf of all of us in giving thanks for the lives of our classmates who are no longer alive, and also a faculty and staff of all those persons who have been a part of our lives in some way in this place. So join with me in prayer, please. Gracious and loving God, in times such as this, we're given an opportunity to remember. We're given an opportunity to reflect. And we're given an opportunity to lift our voices in thanksgiving. And tonight we give thanks to you. Thanks to you for those relationships that have meant so much to us. Thanks to you for those persons who may have been only a casual acquaintance or may have been very special for any number of reasons. We give thanks to you for the lives of classmates who are no longer with us, for the lives of faculty and staff persons who are no longer with us. And again, we thank you for what they have meant in our lives in the past, and for the opportunity to have known them, to have benefited from their wisdom, from their sharing with us about what is important in life, what makes life meaningful. And so we come rejoicing even though there's pain and loss, but rejoicing that you made it possible for these persons to pass through our lives in whatever way, and for the benefits that that has brought to us. And we ask that you would be with us as we continue our journeys of life. Allow us to share more meaningfully, more deeply with each other, to celebrate these relationships that we remember and celebrate tonight. These things we pray in the name of Christ our Lord. Amen.
Ken, do you want to go right into the gift that needed to be presented? Here, do you want to?
Yes, actually, it's very appropriate to follow with this. But first of all, I want to say thank you to the student who is helping us. Ruth Wepner is helping us with the audio visuals tonight, and I'm so thankful that through her assistance, we are going to have a record of what has transpired in these couple of hours, and especially a record of what Ron and George have said. Without knowing it, without realizing it perhaps, you have perhaps stated so succinctly what we are about today at Catawba. And as we deal with the gift, that's what we're calling it, as we deal with the gift, we recognize, and I just got out of a 2-day board meeting, and this is really what we talked about during much of that Board of Trustees meeting. we realize that we have a tremendous challenge in front of us to be good stewards of that gift and to use that gift in ways that will truly make Catawba distinctive as an institution that continues to fulfill that mission that has been so unique or at least special to Catawba during these years. And President Nelson has said, you know, this gift and what we do in the years ahead will make it possible for us to become more selective in our student body. But we're not using that term selective to mean higher GPAs necessarily, higher SAT scores, that kind of selectivity. Be more selective in bringing here the students that we believe are really deserving of the Catawba experience and the students who will really embrace that experience and truly benefit from it because they embrace it. And I lived with Ron, but I never knew part of what he shared tonight. We both grew up on farms, and I knew we both struggled to have money to get through college and so forth. But then, and the same thing was true with George. You know, I considered us to be pretty good friends during college, but I never knew a lot of what you shared tonight. But both of you essentially shared the fact that because people at Catawba, faculty, administrators, and so forth, held true to that mission of giving people an opportunity and not saying, you know, you haven't had those tests, so don't think about coming to Catawba. Or you don't have the background of, you know, being third generation college student or that kind of thing, so you really don't belong at Catawba. And I could tell you story after story that I have learned about how Dr. Keppel and Dr. Dearborn and other leaders of this institution were called by pastors and said, we know someone that needs to be at Catawba. And they found a way. They found the money, they found a way for those persons to be here. And some others in this room may have been here in the same kind of way. I believe that going forward is really our mission as well. And so thank you for that, and we'll find a way to share those stories. And if any of the rest of you want to stick around and tape another story like that, feel free to do that. I do, and I'm sorry, I don't even know how much time I'm supposed to have, but anyway, I'll make the other quick. But I can't resist following up on George's account about Earl Ruth, because one of my most memorable experiences at Catawba was one evening when Earl Ruth sent word to all the guys living in East Section, and maybe most of SR, I don't know just how much of SR, that we were to meet in front of the steps on the back of Hedrick Administration Building. The campus had been papered a day or two beforehand, and he was going to announce the fact that we would not have any toilet paper delivered to our bathrooms for the next week or something like that. But his real mission was to remind us that Catawba had a rule, and that rule was no alcohol on campus. And Dr. Ruth, with a cigar out of one corner of his mouth and standing on top of those steps, looking down on all of us, being just as crusty as George mentioned that he could be, probably with cuts in his shoes and so forth, looked out and he said, boys, now let me tell you, that means no alcohol on campus. He said, that means no bottles of alcohol on campus, that means no cans of alcohol on campus, that means no alcohol in your bodies on campus. He said, now I know some of you have gotten into the habit of going down to Al's Nighthawk and taking up and coming back to campus. And you have alcohol on campus when you do that. He said, and let me tell you, I may go down to Al's Nighthawk with you. But if we go down there and drink and come back to campus, you're going home. I will stay. That was was Dr. Root. Wonderful. But I mean, he was one of those persons, as George indicated, he really cared about you, and he really wanted to see you succeed and do those things necessary. Okay, just a little bit about the gift. Before you leave, you can go over here. There are some renderings, architectural renderings and so forth. It was suggested to us over a year ago now, I guess, that we build a columbarium here at the college. And you can see one of the renderings in front of you here. What has developed as we thought about that, we being administrators and some alumni that I've talked to about this project and so forth, is a project that has actually three parts to it. One is a columbarium. In the center there, with the people kind of surrounding it, is a vault that will have the niches in it, the columbarium niches. And it'll be like any other columbarium in that people buy a niche, and their cremains are placed in the niche. A brass or copper plate goes on it, acknowledging the years of the life of the individual whose remains is there. And so that's one part, and it's designed so that it can be expanded. Probably it will have 48 niches initially, but it can be expanded. You can see there the perspective of where it's located. It's between the chapel and where we are right now. You see the library, the tent and so forth in the library, with the library in the background there. There's actually a sidewalk that goes from the administration building straight out this way. That sidewalk will continue down to the area where the columbarium will be. The columbarium will lead into, and the columbarium will have a reflection pool around it that will be lighted, and that will have a courtyard kind of surface there that will lead into an amphitheater. The amphitheater will look out over the nature preserve. Okay, thank you. And that's looking from the library out across the nature preserve there. The amphitheater will have seating for probably 50 to 75 people. It will be used for outdoor worship services, drama events, and classes. You know, in the last 2 years, we have a lot of outdoor classes. That gives us one more space for outdoor classes. And then surrounding that will be a labyrinth. It will be a labyrinth created out of shrubs and with gravel or stones that people will walk on. And so it will provide our students and all the members of our community another place for meditation, another place for quiet, and a place to think and to worship. So it has three parts to it, and the estimated cost on it is $70,000, and we have some funding already available, and we have a donor who has made a pledge of $10,000 toward it and has suggested that a matching program be extended to the members of the class of 1970. And if that is matched, even though that's not a major part of the cost of it, there will still be acknowledgement of it with a plaque that this is a gift to the college from the class of 1970. So that, in a nutshell, is what is involved. We are waiting for a topographic map to be returned, and as soon as that is done, the engineer and the architect are ready to finish the plans and get started, and hopefully it will be constructed by next summer, certainly. So that very quickly is the project. Be happy to try to entertain any questions that you may have about it either now or throughout the weekend.
If someone wants to contribute, what's the process that they go through? Because you do this. I mean, do they send it through like you would making a contribution?
Yes.
And then put on the envelope, or
That's right.
what is specific?
That's right. Just send it to development. You can do that online. You can do that with an envelope and a check in it. Be sure, if it's a check, that you put on the purpose line, Columbarium project, or you can say class of 70 project, either one will identify it so that development will get it into the right account. Yeah, that's basically it. We've got lots of ways for people to give money, but that may be, those are two of the best ways, is to go online, you do it, you save a stamp, that kind of thing, or you can send a check. Did I answer that right, Savannah?
Yes, you did a very great job.
Okay.
We have pledge cards, which I have some with me, that will look like this. I know you can't see that far away, probably. I can't even read that. But it does have all of the information for you to fill out, such as what your pledge would be, you know, exactly what you want to make it out to be, or what you want to contribute, lots of details that you can add in there. So many ways that we can take care of that, or you could come in person, over the phone, we can do it online. Online has become everyone's favorite option, but we will also walk you through the process if you are not comfortable doing it alone online, so that you know what you're doing, okay?
And the college will accept multi-year gifts.
Yes.
You know, if you want to give $100,000 and pay it over 4 years, we're happy to take $25,000 a year. Okay. Anything else? Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Ken. Okay, I think we're near the end of the program. I think Larry has a few words to share with us. And have any of you on a Saturday night gotten an urge to go for steak? Do you remember our Saturday night, the smell, the wafting of the smell of steak nights here?
I've heard of that.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, well, okay, all right.
They called it a steak.
They called it a steak.
It was a
Oh,
grilled steak.
oh my.
It was. Oh my God.
I want us to thank several people. Thank you first to you for coming to this 51st reunion. It took an effort on your part to get here. I thank you. The planning team thanks you. The college thanks you for coming and being a part of this 51st reunion. I want to also thank Savannah Schaefer. She is of the class of 2015.
19.
2019. I thought the 15 isn't in your email address. Okay, you started in 15.
That's when I started, yes, you're right.
You
It is
finished
my
in
email.
19,
You're
okay.
good.
Class of 19. And she is with the, her title is Manager of Alumni Engagement. And there's several people in that department. Thank you for this young lady's assistance to Webb.
Webner, Ruth
Web-
Webner.
Oh, this is Ruth Webner.
Yes.
I know your parents.
You do?
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Is that Reverend and Reverend
Yeah,
Webner?
Right.
Okay, good to see you. So I think the last time I saw you, you were a baby. And your mother carried you everywhere around. Her grandparents were Abernathy's, a name that's familiar. And her great uncle, I think it maybe 3 greats, is Julius Abernathy Sr. The chapel was named in his honor, the athletic program, and also the Abernathy Village. So we finally get an Abernathy back on campus.
My mom is very happy.
And we're happy too. She's one of 10 children.
12.
Oh, excuse me, 12 children. It's good to have you here.
Yeah.
Thank you. I want to thank also Dr. Clapp. Dr. Clapp has been here, 32 years? Is that right?
33.
33. Well, I thought you came in, well, okay.
Depends
30.
on how you look at it, but what difference does it make?
Okay, well, he's still making a difference.
Yes.
He says, what difference does it make? He's still making a difference. One of the things, when Dr. Clapp came here, Kent Clapp came here as chaplain, that was his title. He became senior vice president. Now he's senior vice president and chaplain and director of the Lilly Center. And the Lilly Center Dr. Clapp has given a gift to the college by having an endowed position for the chaplain. You didn't give it, but you raised it. And several of us may have been on a committee to raise that money. But the position is endowed for the chaplain's position. Over the past years, millions of dollars have come from the Lilly Foundation to have the Lilly Center here at Catawba, and to have a clergy network, to have a Discover Theological School for middle schoolers and high schoolers. And I'm indebted to my friend, Dr. Clapp, for all he's done in terms of the spiritual life of our campus. We're going to hear him preach. It may not be the best sermon he's ever preached, but it'll be in the morning. I guarantee he's going to finish it up about 12 o'clock tonight, and he'll be ready in the morning for us. Thank you, Ken, for all you do. And I want to also make mention that one thing in the legacy that Catawba has given to us, we can give a legacy to Catawba by continuing to support the students, encourage students to come to Catawba, become enrolled here, engaged here, also get involved in some way, maybe as a volunteer through the Alumni Association. Keep in touch. Let's keep calling each other, emailing each other, keeping in touch. And I probably talked to about 30 alumni in our class. I don't have that report ready yet, but it's been a pleasure to be on the committee and talk to so many. And we hope you'll come back again for another homecoming, and come sooner than later. Please come back for homecomings. And I'd like to close with a word of blessing. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord's face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And may the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace, love, mercy, kindness, and a wealth of God's generosity. Amen. Wonderful. Continue to stay. They're going to close up this room. But Savannah, do you want to say a final word of directions?
Well, I just want to say thank you for letting me be a part of your special night. It makes me emotional to hear all of these stories, knowing all of the stories that I've heard. The most appealing part of this job position to me was that I would get to hear these stories. So this is what I look forward to every day, every reunion planning meeting that we have. This is the most important part to me. And all of you are so wonderful. We're grateful to have you and a part of the Catawba family. We are going to start cleaning up. You're welcome to stay and chat and mingle. We of course want that, take pictures, have fellowship, but we will start cleaning tables and things. So you're free to use couches. The slides are still out there. I don't know if Larry wants to pull those out again. We'll see. But thank you so much for coming out. And like Larry said, come back for homecoming. We're talking about having Golden Club reunion events. So look forward to that in the future. We're grateful. Thank you.